Hey YouTube, it's Bea. I'm doing Tuesdays as per usual, and our topic for this week is a question that's pretty long. It's my friends are always asking questions about food and eating disorders, specifically mine, and part of me knows it's because they're concerned, interested, and curious, but another part of me feels like a freak, and their constant questioning makes me feel even more vulnerable and hateful towards myself. How do I deal with them without hurting them? Alright, that can be a really difficult situation, and I've been there. I, when I first received help from my eating disorder, I dealt with a few of my close friends who knew, acting a little like, oh, well, and I think it was because they wanted to understand. And I think that, when you're going through an eating disorder and telling people, you really do find out who your true friends are. I know I did. And yeah, I lost quite a few friends, but I kept all my true friends. Because a lot of people, seem to see me differently and not a friend anymore. For some reason, I don't know. But so, anywho, I think that people who are your true friends really are just wanting to find some common ground to relate to you on. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, they want to learn more about, eating disorders are very hard for other people to understand. You and I know that. And by, asking us questions about it and what our views are, etc., etc., I think it really does help some people, at least try to grasp the concept, or, why you're doing what you're doing. But I also do know that, a lot of the times people like us are looking for some sort of attention. And I don't mean like attention like, oh, look at me, I mean, but in a way, yeah, I do actually. Like, I know I did a lot of my eating disorders. I wanted attention from my family. I felt very neglected. And a lot of us seem to think that we want attention from others. We're almost proud, excuse me, proud of our eating disorders. And I'm not saying you should be ashamed of them, I'm not saying that at all. But flaunting it around, I've made that mistake. And I know a lot of the times when people ask us questions, we tend to all of a sudden realize we don't want that attention. And it's not a great feeling. A lot of the times I know I feel very, very, very ashamed of my eating habits. And, I eat on a very regular meal plan now. There's nothing really unusual about it, but a lot of the times, I feel weird rummaging through, other people's food cupboards or refrigerators to find something that I can eat, that I'm comfortable eating. I do feel, insecure about it. But, there's also, this is kind of a little twisted, but there is, the part that's, how do I deal with them without hurting them? There is kind of a twisted part to this. Like, sometimes people just realize they're not going to understand it, and they don't really know what they're dealing with, so they really just want to leave you alone. Like, I find that to be the case a lot. They might, try to be helpful, they'll try to ask questions like, how are you doing? Are you, have you had any relapses? How did you lose all that weight? What did it hurt? I don't know, stupid stuff like that. And a lot of the times they will just shove off if you just say, I'm really not comfortable talking about it. Because, in my opinion, what a lot of people do, the reason why they ask those questions is because they're trying to make you feel more comfortable too. They don't want you to feel like the odd one out because, you have an eating disorder and all that shiz. Let's see. And as far as I'm sorry, I'm really tired. I'm just at home. As far as the, vulnerability and the hatefulness towards yourself, that, I don't think that should be pegged on other people. That is something that we all need to work on ourselves, and it comes from, just finding peace on the inside. And, just because our loved ones maybe are asking us questions about, what we're struggling with, does not mean that we have to feel at all vulnerable or insecure. No one can make you feel inadequate without your consent. And if they're just asking questions, really, it's your own fault if you're feeling hateful towards yourself. They're not trying to make you feel ashamed. They're not. Trust me. And then there's those random people, like schoolmates, who might come up to you and start asking about it. And that's those times where you just say, look, it's personal. I don't want to talk about it. And they'll stop. I know. Doesn't sound like it's going to work. It works. I have to deal with high school girls. Yeah. Those of you who are out of high school, lucky. And a lot of times, I know, this is what I do. A lot of times, if, even if my mom just asks me a question or something, I'll get really defensive. But then, I'll look back on it a moment later, and I'll realize she was just asking a question for my well-being. I think we seem to assume the worst of what these people want, when really, I think that people can just, they're just trying to make you feel more comfortable. And if you're really not comfortable talking about it, I know a lot of people get triggered extremely easily just by even mentioning a few words. There are people out there like that. I'm sure a lot of you viewers are like that. I was like that at one point. I think everyone might be like that at one point in their recovery. But in that case, do not feel scared or ashamed to say, I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable discussing this. It's not because it's you, it's just something that is very personal to me, and I'd like to keep it to myself. You don't have to be rude about it. You can be polite. And there are people who are just going to keep nagging you and nagging you and nagging you. Oh, how'd you lose the weight? What'd you eat? How'd you do that? And there's those people in the world. And there's also ways to get around those people, though. But when family members and best friends ask you, they're just looking out for you. And that's one way you can really tell who your real friends are. Sometimes the people who ask about it are your real friends. A lot of the times they are, because there are other people who just try to avoid it as if nothing ever happened. I know a lot of times we wish nothing ever happened and that we could just move on with our lives, but you can't. What you're going through just changed your life forever. I'm sorry, but it has. And there's ways to accept that without hating yourself. And it comes from the inside, and it's just something you go through. It happens eventually, trust me. See you guys next week.